Deuteronomy 28 in verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in the storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto. And he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The Lord shall establish thee a holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, and walk in his ways. And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, and in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy ground, in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto the land in his season, and bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. And the Lord shall make thee the head, and not the tail. And thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. Thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right or to the left, to go after other gods, to serve them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kine, the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shall be when thou comest in, and cursed shall be when thou goest out. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make pestilence cleave. The Lord shall make pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with inflammation, and with extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, with mildew. And they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies, and thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be the meat unto the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch whereof thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, and blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be openly oppressed, and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. And thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. Thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and thou shalt not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto other people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shall serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment and a proverb and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and the fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. They shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as a swift eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor of the young. He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee, either corn, wine, or oil, or increase of thy kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. He shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest, throughout all thy land. He shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thy own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall be distressed thee. So that the man that is tender among you, and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave. So that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and the delicate among you, the women among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground of the delicateness, tenderness, her evil eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she bare, for she shall eat them for want of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear the glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues of long continuance, and sore sickness of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou beest destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for the multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. It shall come to pass that the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you. So the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all the people from one end of the earth even to the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even, and at the even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. The Lord is known for the judgment which he executeth. The wicked are snared in the works of their own hands. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God.
Today, since this is the first time you're hearing from me, is that this is a horrific crime, and these crimes are not going to be tolerated by me and by this office. A young couple at the beginning of their life's journey, about to be engaged in another country, had their bodies removed in the cold of the night in a foreign city in a body bag. We are not going to tolerate that anymore. And I am not unaware, based upon my own background, of the repercussions of this kind of case. This is the kind of case that picks at old sores and old scars, because these kinds of cases remind us of what has happened in the past that we can never and must never forget.
day is Friday. May 23rd, 2025. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are, wherever you may be listening to this broadcast, this declaration, proclamation, audio, video recording, and by now you know it is whatever you want to call it what you want to call it, say what you want to say about it, but just make sure you do it, people, while free speech is still available, while you can still call out the corruption within your own government on both sides of the paradigm, while you can still speak your mind in 2025, while you can see the ship sinking, you can see destruction on the horizon, shout it from the housetops. Wow, free speech is available. It's that day, my friends. The day is coming, ladies and gentlemen, where these little feeble-minded, limp-wristed crybabies are gonna cry to shut up the people who are calling out the corruption within their own government, the people who are preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ in the street. They're making it happen very easily. They're pushing towards that very quickly, as we see in the established controlled media narratives. The shutting down of free speech on campuses, the staged events taking place on campuses, the propaganda, and the crisis acting we're seeing before our eyes, and the radicalism of these people in Washington, D.C., who want to weaponize their power to shut people up, as they have Hollywood stars, quote unquote, coming against the president, like Bruce Springsteen, and then the president coming back at him, talking about he's going to do an investigation, a probe into him and his corruption. But this is the type of thing that they're building up to show you. This is the type of thing that they're building up to get you used to, that you can't speak out against the president. And they're using Hollywood actors to bring it about. As Trump is an actor, he's a liar, he's a magician himself, just like Joe Biden was. Just as corrupt. I will say this, that they make all these hot speaking points about how Trump is, being given this jet, and he's banked on all these business opportunities that have come his way from the assassination attempt, making merchandise off of that, making t-shirts off of that, getting shoes out, making shoes, selling all kinds of things, from his Bitcoin scam to all these different types of things that Donald Trump is banking in on. Well, Joe Biden was doing the same things, ladies and gentlemen. It just goes to show you that it doesn't matter who you vote for. You're voting in the same corrupt people. You're voting in the same corrupt con people. It just goes to show you that your nation has been infiltrated by these secret society members, and that your vote doesn't matter. The only way to change things is to stand up and demand all these people be kicked out and start from scratch. That's the only way things can change. You just read there in that scripture in Deuteronomy 28, as it also says in Hosea chapter number 8, I believe in verse 4, that they set up kings and not by me. They set up kings and not by me. But also here in Deuteronomy 28, when God was talking about these judgments he was going to bring upon Israel for their turning away from him, he said, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods of wood and stone. Yes, God can establish and remove kings. He establishes, it says, and removes kings. But also you see that man can set up kings without God in it. So that just goes right in line with, God repenting at Nineveh's repentance, because Nineveh repented. God saw their works and he repented of the evil he was going to do to them. You see that God, he can do whatever he pleases. If he wants to remove a king, like in Acts, when he removed Herod for not giving God glory, giving himself glory, he removed him. He smote him. The angel of the Lord smote him. So you see lots of different instances in the Bible. I bring that in to talk about, again, how America has left God out of the equation for quite a long time. And the proof of that truth is the absolute corruption in the land. From grifters like Donald Trump, grifters like Joe Biden, grifters like these people in Washington, D.C., who are scamming the American people and making themselves rich while the rest of the country goes poor. But again, you'll sit there and believe that these people have your best interest. You'll put your confidence and trust in these people as if they care about you. They don't care about you. All these things with, like I'm mentioning, all the things that the news media has tried to bring out with, receiving the jet from Qatar and all, it's just nothing but a distraction. Nothing but a distraction. And what happened the other day with this shooting that took place, and of course, just imagine this, how in the newsreel that I saw, it was perfect. All they showed is the moment that they had the guy in custody and they're cuffing him and he's talking about free Palestine. It's all propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. It's all propaganda. We know the museum has to have cameras all throughout there. Let's see the footage of what really happened. Which they're not going to give all of it to you at first, because they're going to sit around and product it and fabricate it and then give it to you. That's how they usually do it, ladies and gentlemen. Unless it's a live event, like the assassination attempt on Donald Duck, the staged Hollywood assassination attempt, staged fake shooting, where everybody was so focused in on the shooter, But no one was focused in on Donald Trump's ear as he comes back into the public eye after that with a ridiculous bandage on his ear, and so on and so forth. And you get what I'm saying. If you've been following these broadcasts, you understand where the position that I take on it all. And a lot of you that enjoy these broadcasts, you understand the position that you take on it all. You're in agreement. Of course, there'll be people out there that disagree. That's fine. They have their right. They have their right to their opinion. They have their right to believe what they want to believe. Praise the Lord. That's the beauty about America. That's like these live streams that I have when I'm out there preaching. I don't try to have somebody monitor the chat room. I don't want people monitoring the chat room. They should be allowed to say whatever they want to say. We don't monitor the chat room. We allow people to come in there when we're preaching to say whatever the heck they want to say. They have their right to the opinion. So you have your right to believe whatever you want to believe. We understand that the secret societies, the priests behind the throne, that they're the ones that are really in control here. That the United States is nothing more than Rome's military. That the military-industrial complex will continue to go forward. It will continue to persist as Eisenhower said it would. And that's the interesting note about Qatar, that no one talks about all the $42 billion, I believe the number is, that Donald Trump gave Qatar for arms and munitions and all these other things. That's the real story. That's the real story. I might have the number messed up there, but I also believe that the number is something crazy for this parade that Donald Trump wants to have in D.C. for his birthday. He wants to spend your tax money on a huge military parade for himself. But you don't care. You could care less. He's going to spend his money, your money. He's going to spend the money you give on himself. For a big little show to show off our military might, so-called. That's what's going on right now. There's just a lot of distraction. The main thing that you need to stay focused on is what's being spoken right here in this, what I'll call a staged event. Because you heard, as I was played in that short clip before the music cued, the Judge Janine was talking about that this is a historic day, a day that we'll never forget, and all this other stuff. They're not going to make sure that this thing never happens again, and that's what cues me into my next segment from this Fox News clip here. Pay very close attention to what's being spoken of, because this is what is going to bring me into the main topic tonight. This morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, wherever you may be listening to this broadcast. It's going to bring me into this 1984 Minority Report, enemy of the state-like society that is coming. Here, let's listen to this bite here.
Executing them. We can't act surprised. We've been seeing this brewing, and unfortunately we wake up when it's too late.
Yeah, Emily talks about the shooter, Aaron Cohen, Hispanic man from Chicago, goes to D.C., allegedly kills 2 Jewish people. Is there a way to profile this, do you think?
There is. I want to talk to the source to get to your answer. We've all seen the anti-Semitism exploding on the campus for the last 2 years. Now we see the deliberate execution of 2 Jews in Washington, D.C. The source from the intelligence community is that we are seeing the active deployment of algorithm hijacking for the purpose of infiltrating the United States via Russia, China, Iran for the anti-Semitism. This is a legitimate domestic monster terrorist threat, which I believe is the sole root behind all of this madness that we're seeing across the United States and across the West. And so we need an algorithm-based company to come in, and you're not going to stop the infiltration that's already happened, but what we can do is create an open AI source that can be developed for DHS and for law enforcement to be able to predict these behaviors and then feed it to the school systems and law enforcement so that they have AI working with them to be able to thwart these attacks and prevent them before the shots get fired. The threat has evolved.
I'm going to stop it right there. That sounds a lot like something we've seen in movies in the past. When I was a lost sinner on my way to hell, I've seen 2 movies called Minority Report and Enemy of the State that sound exactly like what this guy and the rhetoric that this guy's spewing out of his mouth. They want to have a foreknowledge of crime before it takes place. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are listening to right there coming out of that man's mouth is a police state. Now, we talk about police state all the time, but that is the absolute definition of a police state when they can have, where they are making every single person now out in the open, in public, every single person, as he's saying, is profiled. Every single person is a suspect at all times. And we know, ladies and gentlemen, they monitor our phones. We know that's what the NSA, that's what the National Security Agency is for, to spy on the American people. But this would be an invasion of privacy of monument proportions that this man is talking about. And this is the thing that I'm talking about, how they constantly will use situations like this. They will create a problem and then come in with the solution. Listen to what he's saying there. We need an AI system that can monitor and track and forethink crime before it's even committed. That is straight out of a movie called Minority Report. That is straight out of a movie called Enemy of the State, which goes back to the things that I've talked about before, revelation of the method. They show you exactly what they're going to do before they do it, years ahead, and they build it up to where now, when they bring it in to you, because they've been putting this seed in your mind and been watering it for so long, now, to you, it's just normal. To the average person, yeah, they're keeping me safe. I think it's a great thing. It's a terrible thing. It's a complete and utter intrusion upon your liberty. But that's why the terror, as I've spoken before, and many others before me, the terror is going to continue. The terror threats, they'll never come up with the solution because they're not trying to really come up with the solution. The wars will never stop because they're not trying to stop the wars. They need the wars to continue. They want the sacrifice of mass people to depopulate humanity to continue. All these things tie in together, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back and listen again just a little bit into what he was saying. One more time.
Is that we are seeing the active deployment of algorithm hijacking for the purpose of infiltrating the United States via Russia, China, Iran for the anti-Semitism. This is a legitimate domestic monster terrorist threat, which I believe is the sole...
Russia, China, Iran for the anti-Semitism. This is a domestic infiltration. Listen, we've been domestically infiltrated a long time ago. Our government has been infiltrated a long time ago. This is the narrative they're trying to push through these college protests that are taking place, through this shooting that took place. Like I said, what do they show you? All they show you is a guy getting handcuffed and saying "Free Palestine." They haven't shown anybody anything like they did with the Mangione thing, where they actually showed the shooting take place, or the acting, whatever you believe. They want to create a panic atmosphere by making people think that they live in an unstable population, so they can come in and do whatever they want to do. And they use things like this to bring out what he's bringing out here. That we need an AI technology that can forethink these crimes before they even take place. Just inching closer and closer the chains towards the end zone with the Republic, with the Great Experiment. It's coming to a close. And it's coming at the rapid rate. He mentions Russia and China and Iran. Those three names continuously coming up in being spewed all throughout the established controlled media. And while all these things are happening, the tariff wars and all these things are happening, this is the main thing that they use. They use a lot of different things, but this is the main thing that they use to bring forth and rewrite laws. Let's finish listening.
Root behind all of this madness that we're seeing across the United States and across the West. And so we need an algorithm-based company to come in, and you're not going to stop the infiltration that's already happened, but what we can do is create an open AI source that can be developed for DHS and for law enforcement to be able to predict these behaviors.
Yep.
And then feed it to the school systems and law enforcement so that they have AI working with them to be able to thwart these attacks and prevent them before the shots get fired.
We need AI to be able to predict. Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. I have this other clip here that I want to play. It's this, let's check it out here. Cue it up for you. This is also about the same incident that just took place in D.C.
Into this is, of course, in its early stages, but what we believe to know is the suspect was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and then went on to murder 2 innocent people and shout "Free Palestine." So is this an example of something that is deeply wrong with this country?
Absolutely. He was like the little terrorist that could. I think I can, I think I can. He just repeated slogans to himself often enough to make it true. When I heard the terrorist scream on Wednesday night, "Free Palestine," the slogan was ringing in my ears.
And again, like I said, that's all they showed you. Is that's a lot of the times with these stage things, that's all they show you. Unless it's live time, like 9/11 or the Donald Duck assassination hoax. But, this is all they showed you was the guy getting cuffed. It was like literally like the camera crew was in cahoots with the police department and was like, okay, go, you're live. And the guy immediately just, you start seeing him, free Palestine, right at the perfect timing, and they're cuffing him and taking him into the building. And like I said, we haven't seen any footage yet, but we're not going to see it right away. And all they show you is a bunch of, squad cars and taped off area and all this stuff, and it's just another production for you, the viewer. And a lot of people, what they do, you shake your head, you say that's impossible. No one's that evil, no one's that wicked that they would stage something like that or stage an event to push a narrative and push an agenda. No one's that evil. No one's that cynical. No one's that sinister. Really? You better think again. You better think about the people that are live on television reading off a script to you. You better think about your leaders who have business interests elsewhere. And I'm not just talking about Donald Duck, because Joe Biden did the same things. Hunter Biden, his son, same things. Capitalizing off the ignorance of the American people. Barack Obama, the same things. Bill Clinton, the same things. George W. Bush, the same things. And on and on and on. They capitalize off the ignorance and stupidity of the American people to fulfill their own goals and objectives. And they get rich in the process, and you and I get poorer in the process because we continue to play their game, their political game, instead of realizing that they're the problem and that this whole thing needs to be gutted and restarted. Well, this is what, a lot like what I was reading in Deuteronomy 28. This is what happens when a nation forgets God. It gets turned into hell. This is what happens when Satan infiltrates, discredits, and dismantles the church from within, and the church compromises for generation after generation. This is the end result. Wars and rumors of wars. And the wars continue. The banker wars are going to continue as long as they see fit. And they're ready to bring the New World Order in. 100% out in the open. They speak about it all the time. We're not fully there yet. Because you and I, like I said, we still have free speech. That's the number one thing, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I say the slogan that I say in the beginning of this broadcast. Do it while free speech is available, because one day you're not going to be able to without their consequence coming with it. And that's where we're headed as a nation.
Because I'd heard it Wednesday morning outside Columbia at my own kid's college graduation, where not only students were booing the president, but when I turned around, there was a mom telling the president of Columbia University, get off the stage, because she had arrested protesters the week before. Look, I think this proves that free speech might be a right, but it's also a responsibility. And the shooting shows the connection.
So they're going to determine to you what the responsibility of free speech is. They're going to broaden what free speech is and what it's not. They're going to be the ones to determine that. That's the whole idea. I've said it many times. The second you come against somebody else's free speech, you come against your own. And that's how they're going to play this. That's how they want to play this. That's why all these things are taking place on these college campuses. That's why it's so heightened. Take a step back and look at the bigger picture of all this. Stop getting so focused on the Donald Trump tariffs. We know that he's a liar already. He's already proved himself to be a liar within the first 24 hours. He said he was going to stop the war. He didn't stop the war with Ukraine and Russia. He said prices were going to go down. The prices went up. He said he was going to do all these grandiose things, and you people bought it hook, line, and sinker. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. You fell for it. It's always a red flag when somebody gets up there and promises you the world. Promises you he's going to do everything that you want to hear. He flattered you. He got up there and he flattered, I'm not a Christian. 4 more years, you won't have to vote again. Well, that could very well be a reality. I'm not going to say it's not, but I mean, when he says it right in front of your face, I mean, I believe it. I don't know if 100% absolute certainty it's going to happen, but I believe it when they say it. They tell you exactly what they're going to do and then do it. It's going to be a golden age, all right, and it's not going to be for you and me. It's a golden age for the elite. It's a golden age for the Luciferians behind the throne. That's who the golden age will be for. We're going to get 1984 as what we're hearing right here. Literally, what you're hearing. Having a foreknowledge. We need AI to be able to predict these things to happen before it happens. Basically, let me see your papers, please, whenever they feel like it and want it. Because AI said so.
Between rhetoric and bloodshed is real. After the cold-blooded murder on Wednesday, the consequences of this kind of violent rhetoric can't be denied.
Yeah, and the victims should have been celebrating the most exciting times in their lives. Yaron Lachinsky was a Christian, and Sarah Milgram was a U.S. citizen, and both of them were working to bring peace to the Middle East, including Gaza, and if only the suspect had known that.
Here's how we'll bring peace to Gaza. Here's what we'll do. We'll take all the people that we bombed the living tar out of, and we'll move them to another place, and we're going to come in and build it up, and we're going to make it this grandiose place, and we're going to make billions and billions of dollars off of it. We're going to displace these people. Screw them. That's why they laugh at you with these clips where they're withholding aid from those people. They want them out of there. They don't want to have to take it by force. So they're giving them ample time to get out. But they're not leaving. So what's the next measure? They're going to make them leave by force. They don't want to do that because it's not going to look good for them. It'll look better if they'll just starve them out and just force them to leave by starvation. These guys, Netanyahu and Trump, man, they're evil. These are the Jews that say they are not Jews. You better be careful. You better be on guard. You better not fall for this. Because he just said it in the last clip. And she's saying it now. Basically, people shouldn't, they're not, free speech should be monitored to what we want to decide free speech is. Don't fall for this stuff.
Absolutely. They weren't, the Yaron was not Jewish. He was perceived as Jewish. She was a third-generation Kansas from the town of Prairie Village, where my mother and my grandparents are from. These are folks who are, raised on corn-fed optimism, and in their world, stories can have happy endings. And so our only hope is that this drives home a message that terrorism, it isn't only about killing, it's a terrorism mindset, which in one word is dehumanization.
It's like I said, the war on terror is a farce. Let's go back and read an Adolf Hitler quote for you. I know people they just get so stirred up about that. How could you even look at an Adolf Hitler quote? Well, because Adolf Hitler and the tactics he used are the same tactics being used before your very eyes. Same tactics. Let's read a couple. Terrorism is the best political weapon, for nothing drives people harder than a fear of sudden death. End quote. Quote, the greater the crime perpetuated by the leadership, the less likely it is that the people will ever believe their leaders are capable of perpetrating such an event. Will you people wake up? Will you pull your head out of your rear and stop defending these liars on screen? .666 News is not helping your brain. 666 News is conditioning your brain for what is coming. AI working with police and the Department of Homeland Security to stop these crimes before they take place. Are you listening to this, people? That's why I'm making this video. I'm bringing it to your attention. Because this isn't some small thing that these people are talking about. And I make the connection with Minority Report and Enemy of the State because these are movies. This goes right in line with what I spoke about before about revelation of the method. They tell you what they're going to do. They show you what it's going to be before it ever is. Again, but you'll think that these movies are just innocent. It's just Hollywood trying to make a theatrical production and, just mindless. It's just harmless entertainment, Alan. Just harmless entertainment. But I've already told you over and over again, and anybody who's paying attention knows that these Hollywood people, they're in on it too. That's the whole thing with the Hegelian dialect between Bruce Springsteen and Donald Trump. Bruce Springsteen's talking about how Donald Trump's a tyrant because he is a tyrant. And Donald Trump says, I'm going to shut him down. I'm going to have an investigation on him. Anybody who's starting to speak out against Donald Trump now is getting an investigation against him. And of course, they're using a celebrity to do it, to show you the severity of how it will go down when they actually start to implement these things. And now she's talking about free speech needs to be dictated what free speech is. We're going to dictate it for you. People need to wake up. You need to pay attention. I have some quotes here from Elon Musk talking about AI. Everybody's favorite, Elon Musk. He did so great. Yet notice how he's not being mentioned anymore in the news media hardly. He just kind of did his little thing and he's just kind of gone quiet, gone stagnant. Like a magician almost. Oh, imagine that. This is from Elon Musk about AI. Quote, the least scary future I can think of is one where you have at least democratized AI. Also, when there's an evil dictator, that human is going to die. But for an AI, there would be no death. It would live forever. And then you'd have an immortal dictator from which we could never escape. Quote, if AI has a global and humanity just happens to be in the way, it will destroy humanity as a matter of course without even thinking about it. It's just like if we were building a road and an anthill just happens to be in the way. We don't hate ants, we're just building a road. Quote, China and Russia, soon all countries with strong computer science, competition for AI superiority at national level will most likely cause World War III. End quote. Quote, if you're not concerned about AI safety, you should be. Vastly more risky than North Korea, end quote. Quote, mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes. Why do we have no regulatory oversight, end quote. You think this is by accident, ladies and gentlemen? Quote, AI is a rare case where I think we need to be proactive in regulation than be reactive. End quote. Quote, I am not normally an advocate of regulation and oversight. I think one should generally err on the side of minimizing those things. But this is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public, end quote. The biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they are smarter than they actually are. This tends to plague smart people. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that a machine could be way smarter than them, so they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed, end quote. Quote, robots will be able to do everything better than us. I am not sure exactly what to do about this. This is really the scariest problem to me, end quote. Quote, AI will be the best or worst thing for humanity, end quote. Quote, governments don't need to follow normal laws. They will obtain AI developed by companies at gunpoint if necessary, end quote. Sounds really, really, really like a good idea. You already know where I stand with Elon Musk. He's a member of the Silicon Valley OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis. He's a high member in the mystery schools, whether you want to believe it or not. And he is self-proclaimed Dark MAGA, which is a witch. And for all you people who still want to continue to deny the origin of MAGA, the meaning of MAGA, for all the scholars out there who love to check out different meanings in different languages, MAGA means witch in Latin, and MAGA is the fifth and highest degree in the hierarchy of the Church of Satan. That's just a coincidence, though, Alan. That's just a coincidence there, Alan. That can't be real. That's not credible. Keep on telling yourself that. Let's look at this. I wanted to show you what the plot is of these movies that I've mentioned before. Minority Report and Enemy of the State. We're going to start with Minority Report. It's written by Steven Spielberg, and it was starred by Tom Cruise. This is the plot of the movie. You'll find these things are strikingly similar to what we just listened to in these clips. But hey, it's just a coincidence, right? Wrong. In 2054, the federal government plans to nationally implement the Washington, D.C. prototype pre-crime police program, which has been operating for 6 years. These 3 clairvoyant humans, precogs, receive psychic impressions of an impending homicide, and officers analyze their visions to determine the location and apprehend the perpetrator before the crime can occur. Would-be killers are placed in an electrically induced coma and held in a panopticon-like prison facility. Although pre-crime has eliminated nearly all premeditated murders during its 6-year existence, spontaneous crimes of passion called red ball killings still occur, giving the police only a short time to act. Pre-crime chief John Anderton joined the program after a 6-year-old son, Sean, was abducted and never found. He suffers from depression and addiction to a drug called Neuron, and his wife Laura has left him. Department of Justice agent Danny Whitwer audits the pre-crime operation intent On uncovering any flaws, Agatha, one of the precogs, experiences a flashback to a woman's drowning as Anderton watches. Curious, he learns from the prison warden that the intended victim, Anne Lively, went missing shortly after her murder was prevented. However, he also discovers that Agatha's vision of the crime is not on file. Soon afterward, the precogs predict that Anderton will kill a man named Leo Crow, whom he has never met. Anderton flees, prompting Whitwer to begin a manhunt. Anderton visits Dr. Isis Heineman, a geneticist whose research led to the creation of pre-crime, and learns that the precogs' abilities are the result of brain damage in the womb caused by their parents' addiction to early impure forms of neuron during pregnancy. Heineman explains that the one precog occasionally sees a different future vision from the others, known as the Minority Report. These discrepancies are purged from the official record to maintain the precog's reputation of infallibility. But the precogs retain their memories. If Anderton does have a minority report, Heineman says, it will most likely have been generated by Agatha, since she is the strongest of the three. After undergoing eye transplant surgery to evade their retinal scanners, you hear that? Retinal scanners, installed all over the city. Does that sound familiar? All over the city, Anderton returns to pre-crime using his removed old eyes, which he kept after the transplant surgery. He enters the temple where the precogs are kept and kidnaps Agatha, shutting down the group mind of which pre-crime depends. With the assistance of a cyber criminal, Anderton searches Agatha's memories but fails to find a minority report for Crow's murder. However, he downloads her memories of Anne's death. The two track Crow to a hotel room and find photos of many children, including his son Sean. Anderton accuses Crow of killing Sean and nearly kills him, but relents at the last moment to place him under arrest. Crow claims he was hired to plant the photos and begs Anderton to kill him, saying that his family will only be paid if he dies. When Anderton still refuses, Crow kills himself in a manner similar to the precog's vision of Anderton killing him. Tipped off by Anderton, Whitwer investigates Anne's case and finds discrepancies to suggest that she had indeed been murdered. He reports his findings to Lamar Burgess, director of pre-crime, who kills him with Anderton's gun. Safe in the knowledge that the offline precogs cannot reveal to him Whitwer's murder, Anderton takes Agatha to Laura's house, where they are finally tracked down by a tactical team of pre-crime officers. Anderton is arrested and imprisoned for the murders of Crow and Whitwer, and Agatha is returned to other precogs after. You see how this doesn't work? You see how innocent people, even in this story, and that's all it is, but how coincidental, right? That Steven Spielberg directed this and talked about this. This is the very same thing, ladies and gentlemen, that they're talking about implementing into our society through AI. The same exact type thing. Maybe not done in the same exact type ways here mentioned, but it's the same thing. And this goes back to the revelation of the method, how they do this. How they precondition you. So when it comes, you'll accept it. This is how they herd the masses. This is how they herd the masses. I didn't finish reading all of it. I'm not going to. I'm going to go to the next one. This is Enemy of the State. This was released. Minority Report was released in 2002, and this was released in 1998. Congressman Phil Hammersley opposes a proposed counterterrorism bill that would significantly expand surveillance powers for American intelligence agencies, arguing that it poses a threat to civil liberties. In response, the National Security Agency, the NSA Assistant Director Tom Reynolds, who supports the bill and stands to benefit professionally from its passage, orders Hammersley's assassination. His team stages the murder of a fatal car accident brought on by a heart attack. Meanwhile, labor lawyer Robert Clayton Dean becomes unwittingly entangled in the conspiracy. Dean is working on a case involving racketeer Paulie Pintero, leveraging a videotape obtained through a surveillance contact known only as Brill. to coerce a favorable settlement. At the same time, wildlife biologist Daniel Zavitt discovers footage of Hammersley's murder captured by a remote camera. Reynolds sends his men after him. In a chance encounter, Zavitt discreetly slips the incriminating video disc into Dean's shopping bag before getting struck and killed in traffic. Reynolds' team finds Dean's business card on Zavitt's corpse and wrongly assumes that he knows about the tape. NSA agents posing as police officers attempt to enter Dean's home without a warrant. When Dean blocks them, the agents break in and plant surveillance devices in his clothes and personal effects. They also fabricate evidence linking him to the money laundering and affair with Rachel Banks, an ex-girlfriend of Brill's courier. As a result, Dean loses his job, has his bank account frozen by the IRS, and is kicked out by his wife Carla. Desperate, Dean calls Rachel to get in touch with Brill. The NSA intercept the call and send an imposter, but the real Brill intervenes. Brill, revealed to be Edward Lyle, a former NSA communications expert, is hiding, removes the bugs on Dean's persons, and reveals the NSA's involvement. When Rachel is later found murdered, Dean and Lyle locate to original disc and identify Reynolds as the mastermind. However, their hideout is raided, the disc is destroyed, and they are forced to flee. Lyle reveals his past. He once worked in Iran during the revolution and escaped after his partner, Rachel Fathers, was killed. He now lives off-grid. While Lyle urges Dean to disappear, Dean insists on exposing Reynolds. They record Congressman Sam Albert as a supporter of the surveillance bill in a compromising situation, then manipulate Reynolds into believing he is being blackmailed. They lure him into a meeting under the pretense of trading the tape. At the meeting, Dean receives Reynolds by claiming the tape is hidden at Pintero's restaurant, which is under federal surveillance. Reynolds confronts Pintero, who misinterprets the demand as a threat involving separate evidence. A shootout ensues between the gangsters and the NSA agents, leaving the most participants dead. Lyle streams the confrontation to the FBI, prompting a raid that ends the standoff. Reynolds' involvement is exposed. In the aftermath, the surveillance bill is shelved. The NSA covers up Reynolds' rogue operation, and Dean is exonerated. He reunites with Carla. Lyle, having escaped again, sends Dean a covert farewell message via television, showing himself enjoying life in a tropical hideaway. Sounds all very familiar, doesn't it? That's just a conspiracy theory. Just a conspiracy theory, huh? Well, after listening to all that, if you think this is a conspiracy theory, let's listen to what this guy says again.
The murders policy, the same way we don't accept foreign terrorists on U.S. soil, why do we accept people who support them and calling for acts of violence, but not just calling for them, but executing them? We can't act surprised. We've been seeing this brewing, and unfortunately we wake up when it's too late.
Yeah, Emily talks about the shooter, Aaron Cohen, Hispanic man from Chicago, goes to D.C., allegedly kills 2 Jewish people. Is there a way to profile this, do you think?
Is there a way to profile this?
There is. I want to talk to the source to get to your answer. We've all seen the anti-Semitism exploding on the campus for the last 2 years. Now we see the deliberate execution of 2 Jews in Washington, D.C. The source from the intelligence community is that we are seeing the active deployment of algorithm hijacking for the purpose of infiltrating the United States via Russia, China, Iran for the anti-Semitism. This is a legitimate domestic monster terrorist threat, which I believe is the sole root behind all of this madness that we're seeing across the United States and across the West. And so we need an algorithm-based company to come in, and you're not going to stop the infiltration that's already happened, but what we can do is create an open AI source that can be developed for DHS and for law enforcement to be able to predict these behaviors and then feed it to the school systems and law enforcement so that they have AI working with them to be able to thwart these attacks and prevent them before the shots get fired. The threat has evolved, Trace. Right. Law enforcement has not.
Meantime, Eli Cohen.
If you're for something like that, you are anti-American. You are anti-freedom. You are anti-liberty. But these people, man, they're going to be able to convince people. They've already convinced you that they can keep you safe. They've already convinced you that they can keep you safe, when they never do, because these terror attacks continue and never cease. Because they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to cease. Look at this whole war, quote, look at this whole war on terror as a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview, end quote. Quote, the fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. There's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq and people over there are fighting, but the war on terror is a joke. End quote. Aaron Russo. Quote, tell a lie loud enough and long enough and people will believe it, end quote. Quote, it's not the truth that matters, but victory, end quote. Quote, the great masses of people will more easily fall victims to a big lie than to a small one, end quote. Quote, it is quite a special secret pleasure how the people around us fail to realize what is really happening to them. End quote. That's you, America. That's America today. That's America today, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're at. Crazy ideals. No, it's not because they care about the public safety. It's because they want to be able to jail and imprison anybody who speaks out against their agendas, their policies. It's because they want to muzzle you and take you into this Orwellian state. None of this stuff's far-fetched. A lot of people laugh about it. They laugh about a police state. A police state describes a state whose government institutions exercise an extreme level of control over civil society and liberties. There is typically little or no distinction between the law and the exercise of political power by the executive, and deployment of internal security and police forces play a heightened role in governance. A police state is a characteristic of authoritarian, totalitarian, illiberal regimes, contrary to liberal democratic regime. Such governments are typically one-party states, dominant party states, but police state level control may emerge in multi-party systems as well. Originally, a police state was a state regulated by a civil administration, but since the beginning of the 20th century has taken on an emotional and derogatory meaning by describing undesirable state of living characterized by the overbearing presence of civil authorities. That's why your police are armed to the gills. That's why they walk around in the same attire, the same body armor as the United States Marines. That's why they drive MRAPs and MATV through your cities. But they're just doing it to keep you safe, right? Surely, the only nation on earth that has the right to keep and bear arms should be the safest of them all, right? Wrong. And it's all by design, ladies and gentlemen. They've been infringing on our rights. They've been stripping them away one by one. And all it's going to take is one more pop-off, one more 9/11 style attack to bring that to pass for these people. These great liars, these great magicians on screen. Don't be deceived or caught off guard. 1984. The story takes place in an imagined future. The current year is uncertain but believed to be 1984. Much of the world is in perpetual war. Great Britain, known as Airstrip 1, has become a province of the totalitarian superstate. Oceania, which is led by Big Brother, a dictatorial leader, supported by an intense cult of personality manufactured by the party's thought police. The party engaged in omnipresent government surveillance and through the Ministry of Truth, historical antagonism, and constant propaganda to persecute individuality and independent thinking. The protagonist, Winston Smith, is a diligent mid-level worker at the Ministry of Truth who secretly hates the party and dreams of rebellion. Smith keeps a forbidden diary. He begins an illegal relationship with a colleague, Julia, and they learn about a shadowy resistance group called the Brotherhood. However, their contact within the Brotherhood turns out to be a party agent, and Smith and Julia are arrested. He is subjected to months of psychological manipulation and torture by the Ministry of Love. The Ministry of Love. He ultimately betrays Julia and is released. He finally realizes he loves Big Brother. Sound familiar? For all you people who love your country so much, you love it more than God. 1984 has become a classic literary example of political dystopian fiction. It has also popularized the term of Orwellian as an adjective, with many terms used in the novel entering common usage, including Big Brother, doublethink, thought police, thought crime, newspeak, and the expression that 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that true today? Whatever they tell you, whatever lie they make big, they just keep repeating it over and over and over, and eventually you people believe it. If they say that 2 + 2 = 5, and they keep repeating it over and over and over and over and over again to you people, you will believe it. That's where we're at in America today. All the things they want to hide, they just put it right in plain view. They put it right in plain view, and you still don't see it. And they know you're not going to see it. My hope and prayer is that people would see it so that they don't get deceived by what's coming. If you're abiding in Jesus Christ, you cannot be deceived. But if you're trusting in the arm of the flesh, if you're trusting in your government, you're going to be cursed. And that's the importance of coming out from among them and being separate. That's the importance of casting off and coming out of this whore of Babylon, this system. Stop putting your trust and faith in riches, trust and faith in all these deceitful workers on screen deceiving you. Cleave unto the Lord thy God. Let Jesus be king today. You haven't repented of your sins. Turn from your wicked way and trust Christ for redemption. You need to be born again, or you won't see the kingdom of God. And for the Christian that's out there that's been listening to these broadcasts, come out of it. Come out of the paradigm. Let go of it. Get out there and continue to fight the good fight of faith and lay hold on eternal life. They talk about peace. They talk about safety. But just like the scripture says, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them like a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I do wish you well. I do wish you well.